Flag in for the flag.
Hold up on the computer. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for those in attendance tonight, or this evening, if you wish to speak during the public hearing and citizen comment period, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. Please sign up on that sheet. I'm not sure how many sheets are up there, but sign up on the appropriate sheet. If you're making public comment, your time is limited to 4 minutes. There's a stoplight here. All right, there's a stoplight somewhere up front. I can't see it. But there's a stoplight. It's a red light, green light, or red light, yellow light, green light. When the green light's on, you've got about 3.5 minutes to talk. At 3.5 minutes, the yellow light comes on. It gives you a time to wind down your comments, and when the red light comes on, we ask you to be respectful and stop talking. If you're going to make citizen comment, this is your chance to address city council. We're not going to be answering or taking questions at that time. It's just your time to tell us what's on your mind. We can document it, and if you want to talk to a city council member individually, you can set that up with us either after the meeting or call us on our phones or email us, and we'll set up time to meet with you and go over your concerns. But we won't be back and forth answering questions during citizen comment period. And that brings us to item number 3. Item number 3 is to adopt our meeting agenda. Just for the record, item number 7, request for final consideration, is to be tabled. And the reason the petitioner wants a little more time to get some affairs in order here. So is there a motion to amend the agenda to table item number 7?
Just for clarity, was it a continuation for number 7?
Table.
Not to table.
Yes, continue generally.
Continue generally.
Continue generally, yes.
I'll make that a motion to adopt those changes.
Continue generally, okay. Is there a second on that motion?
I will second that.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The way that this meeting's been structured on the notes contemplated 2 votes, but what we just did there is sufficient to have adopted and amended in the single vote, so you can move on to the next item.
Everybody agree? That brings us to item number 4, and item number 4 is matters from the mayor. I've got one thing here that I would like to present and ask all of our citizens to support. This evening, I would like to draw special attention to the Waynesboro small businesses and proclaim Saturday, November 27th as Small Business Saturday. Small businesses employ about 40% of individuals and are boosting our local economy and preserving our communities. We encourage folks to show their support for Waynesboro small businesses by shopping small throughout the year, but especially on November 27th, which is Small Business Saturday. If you are a small business and would like some free resources to help promote your business, please call our Economics Development Office. That's all I have. Do we have item number 5 is matters from council members. Anybody have it?
Just wanted to share our appreciation to Senator Warner and his visit to Waynesboro High School this week to talk about federal government's role in capital investment in K-12 education and the infrastructure bill that was just passed Friday and his service to the community. So I appreciate his time in Waynesboro, the mayor and Dr. Hofstadter.
We had guests from all over the state visiting our high school that day, so
Our school board members too.
Dr. Hofstadter.
All right, well, news continues to be good for the COVID update. Our numbers continue to be low. And that I think is attributed to continuing to take it seriously and do the right things as we move through this. Our vaccination rates continue to creep up. The numbers there have not started to reflect the fact that children can be vaccinated. Those 5 to 11, that's a new group. And Augusta Health is starting to do that, so that if you have a child of that age that you want to get signed up for vaccine, you can get to the Augusta Health website and move straight to the COVID vaccine, and they will let you schedule a time. So that should be available and increasing our numbers then as that population is covered. Boosters, they now have a statistic for boosters, and over 2,000 Waynesboro residents have gotten their third dose or their booster of Johnson & Johnson. So again, those numbers are starting to rise as that becomes more available. So hopefully we'll continue to see that going up and continue to see our COVID infection rates staying down, and the hospitalization rates and death rates staying where they are. But again, we still are seeing those numbers creep up slowly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. Item number 6 is to approve our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. Is there a second? Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Bruce Allen. Just for those that are getting here, Bruce Allen's not here tonight, so it'll be a 4-member council tonight. Item number 7 has been set aside. And then item number 8 is a proposed public hearing on proposed amendments to city charter. Item number 8 is hold a public hearing to receive comments on proposed changes to the city charter, including amendments amending the date of the general election from May to November, imposing a ward-based residency requirement, and ward voting in compliance with the changes to the Code of Virginia. Number 3, we're removing from this. And number 4, allowing council to appoint charter members for a term of up to 2 years. Ms. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Honorable members of council. As the mayor just discussed, recent changes in Virginia law necessitate changes to the city's charter. And as amending the charter is somewhat of an involved process, it's always best practice to review your charter and determine if there's other provisions that you will want to amend as well. Under Virginia law, only the General Assembly can amend the city's charter. The process entails the city making a request after a public hearing to the General Assembly to make suggested amendments to its charter. The resolution before you tonight is the city's request, which after adoption, we will forward to our representatives for presentation as a bill before the General Assembly's next general session. Assuming these charter amendments are passed by the General Assembly, they will go into effect July 1, 2022. The attached resolution sets forth 5 basic suggested changes to the charter. Amend the date of the general elections from May to November. Amend the charter to include a ward-based residency requirement for both members of council and the school board. Amend the charter to include ward-based voting for both members of council and the school board. And lastly, there are some administrative or cleanup changes that staff is recommending. One is just a simple change of the applicable dates, mostly from July to January, to reflect the new election cycles. The second is to change some of the language and the duties of the mayor and vice mayor. None of the actual duties will change, just some of the language in it to reflect the council's actual practice. And also some language to ensure the continuity of school board members' terms. Unlike in the council members portion of the charter, the school board members charter portion of the charter does not have an automatic succession of termination of the term until the successor is elected and qualified. And now that they are changing the elections from May to November, we will have a gap, a 6-month gap in our school board terms that council will have to fix with an ordinance. And if this language was in the charter, it wouldn't necessitate that extra step. So that will, in the future, hopefully make things more proceed naturally. As indicated, the Virginia General Assembly enacted 2 new laws relating to elections in 2021 that require changes to the way the city conducts elections, particularly for council and school board. First is section 15.2 1400E, which states effective January 1, 2022, all elections shall be held at the time of the November general elections and for the terms to commence on January 1 of that following year. As Waynesboro currently holds its general elections in May, Waynesboro will be moving to a November general election. And the charter changes we are discussing tonight will simply just catch up with Virginia law. Because even if these charter amendments are, for some reason, not adopted this time, or later on, the Virginia Code section, this 1400E, would still trump the city charter, and Waynesboro would be required to have the November general election despite the language of its charter. As the general elections will move from May to November, elected officials will be taking office January 1, so we need to coordinate those dates. The second Virginia law is 1400F, which likewise is effective January 1, 2022, which states that in a locality that imposes district-based or ward-based residency requirements for its members of the governing body or school board shall be elected by the qualified voters of that district or ward and not by the locality at large. Council may have seen some reports in the news that Virginia Beach was probably the locality that General Assembly was, I hate to use the word targeting, but had in mind when it made this change. And I'm sure that because there's not very many other ward-based residency requirements in many localities, this didn't really affect a lot of other localities, but it affected Virginia Beach in a significant manner, and it affects Waynesboro as well. Because currently in the Waynesboro charter, the school board members do have a residency requirement. So the school board member representing Ward A, for example, must reside in Ward A. Therefore, we have to change the charter in any event to reflect either whatever council's desires of, whether it's to have no residency requirement and therefore switch the school board members' elections to at large, or the other way, make the school board and the city council elections and residency requirements the same and consistent, and then have both come from the vote from the ward. The council has expressed the desire for the latter, so we put in there that wards shall be elected, ward representatives shall be residents of the ward they represent, and shall only be elected from the residents in that particular ward, except for the at-large seat, which will be voted on by everyone in the city as is currently. Again, the last of the recommended changes, mainly the 2 terms for appointment of city charter employees, provides council with some flexibility in making those appointments, tempered, if you will, by the overarching Virginia law that the current council cannot bind future councils in contracts of this nature. So if there is a year where council is desirous of having a 2-year term for Mr. Hamp's contract, for example, but the election cycle fell in a way that in 1 year there could potentially be new council members, it wouldn't be feasible in that year to be able to do it. However, in another year where in 2 years there is no election period, then council has that flexibility to have that option if they would like. And again, it's just an option, 1 year or 2 years. And as the mayor made clear, pursuant to council's request and my misunderstanding of what council was wanting, we have removed the issue of the city assessor. The city assessor is remaining as charter employee as is currently, so my apologies for that confusion. And those are the charter amendments, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, once the resolution is adopted, we will then forward it to the representatives and get the process started.
Any questions? I hereby open the public hearing.
You have none.
And for those that are going to speak in the public hearing, citizen comment period, the podium has been moved over there. This thing seems to be in the way, so the podium is over there. And when you come up to speak, if you want to remove your mask, feel free to remove your mask.
So no one has signed up to speak.
And no one signed up to speak. I hereby close the public hearing. This resolution will be considered at our November 22nd meeting.
Mr. Mayor, ask if we not just to run by the language by our school board members, just as a courtesy. If you've not done that, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Item number 9 is to receive departmental updates from the city public safety departments and the sheriff's office. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we do these departmental updates to provide some context for the council's awareness and the general public's awareness of the state of operations, and forms a basis and some insight as we head into budget season. What have been the exceptional accomplishments in the previous year? What are we anticipating on the horizon for the coming year? Challenges, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and affords some glimpse into the level of service that the departments are able to furnish the community with current resources. So that's the purpose of this evening. As we work through the budget process and as we head to the council retreat, I would ask you to kind of keep this information in your mind as we process forward. So this evening we'll start with the police department. Captain Shaw.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me this evening to speak. Again, my name is Captain David Shaw with the police department. So what I'll provide you over the next few minutes is some basic information as far as an overview of the department, some statistics regarding calls for service, as well as a vision statement for what we see going into 2022. So introduction, as I just said, it'll highlight some department accomplishments from 2021, employee positions and current status of department staffing, reporting statistics of 2021 to date and a comparison to previous years, and again, our plans for year 2022. So like many different jurisdictions, this year created several unprecedented challenges for us in the community. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic and times of strained police-community relationships across the country, you'll see your police department remain committed to service and also to the community. So some highlights of what we've done during 2021. First and foremost, we continue to successfully mitigate COVID through proper safety protocols and procedures within the department. As far as vehicle status and equipment, all captains, sergeants, detectives, and 3 of the 7 corporals have now an assigned take-home vehicle. The purpose of that is to help with quicker deployment to the city in times of need and resources, cuts down on call for service response time and also availability of officers. We have recently ordered the remaining take-home vehicles for the 4 other corporals. Those will all be assigned to the patrol division. One of our proudest accomplishments is our peer support team for the department was awarded state accreditation through the Office of EMS Council. That's a huge reward for us because it solidifies the department's commitment to the mental health and well-being of its employees, and also the tier in which you have to reach through state in order to achieve that recognition. As far as our K9 program goes, we were recently awarded through the hard work of one of our officers, Officer Damage. He applied for and the department received a grant for the purchase of a K9 transport as an insert for a new K9 patrol vehicle that we have recently purchased. And also note, it's not in the slide, however, we're in the final stages of, through a gracious donation from the community, to purchase 2 additional K9s for the department. 2 newer officers have been assigned those, and they will be deployed sometime in 2022 after everybody's trained and brought up to speed with them. This is just a general overview organization chart as of November 1st. It shows the 4 different divisions within the department and staffing as it exists. And I'll go into some highlights from that in the next slide. So as far as department staffing goes, currently the department as of today, we have 47 full-time law enforcement officers throughout our 4 divisions. And we also have 8 auxiliary officers. There are 30 officers assigned to the patrol division. The patrol division are the ones that cover the street through the 4 assigned shifts, and they're the ones that answer the predominant amount of calls for service. There are 6 officers currently on 1 patrol shift and 3 patrol shifts with 7 officers. We do have a power shift. That's a shift that typically runs an offset hour, either during the daytime or during the evening. However, that position is not currently staffed. There are 6 officers that are currently assigned to the investigations division, 5 officers that are assigned to the support services division, 4 officers that are assigned to the special operations division, and we have 3 officers that are currently assigned at the basic academy of Lear's Cave. And of course, none of this could be accomplished without each division having a strong supportive civilian or non-sworn staff in each of them. Overall, though, we are still at the same organizational staffing levels for police officers as we were in the year 1990. So 31 years we've been running with 49 officers. Years of experience. This is a breakdown of the officers in the department. The chief was excluded from this. This is captains, sergeants, corporals, and officers. As you can see, all of your captains have at least 20 years or more of experience. When you get to your sergeants, most of them have around 4 years or greater. 15 to 25 years of experience. Corporals, you have most of them are between 5 to 15 years of experience. And the officers, which is everybody below the rank of corporal that's sworn, that's the breakdown there. I'd like to draw your attention that 19 of the 30 officers that we have less than 5 years of experience. And that goes from the 3 in the academy to the ones that are currently on the street. So what brought us to a lot of our staffing, current status, is in 2021, we entered the year with existing vacancies. We had 1 full-time police officer that retired. We had 1 that resigned. He had left for another law enforcement agency. One part-time officer resigned. He left law enforcement altogether. The only animal control officer for the department retired. We had an operations technician full-time that left for another law enforcement agency. And for those that aren't familiar with the role of an operations technician, that's the non-sworn employee that works the front office of the department, handles the main number for the police department, walk-ins to the lobby, coordinates with dispatch, and also assists officers with paperwork in the office. And one full-time operations technician retired. So as far as hiring new employees, to address these departures and vacancies, this year alone, we've hired 6 new officers. 4 were uncertified. 2 were certified officers from other law enforcement agencies in Virginia. Of that 6, 3 did not successfully complete field training, each one with their own reasons as to why. However, 3 of the 6 did not make it, so that's a 50% attrition rate. The existing part-time operations technician that we had, she moved to full-time to fill one position, and we hired the other replacements. We also started today a new part-time records technician that'll help in the office Monday through Thursday. And we have hired a new animal control officer. She was certified from another jurisdiction, and she's currently completing her last stages of field training. Should be out on her in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So as far as staffing vacancies and concerns, as of today, we have 2 officer vacancies. However, by the end of the year, we'll have at least 3 additional, leaving us with a total of 5 officer vacancies entering into 2022. That's important because that's a 10% reduction in the number of available police officers for the department. It's the equivalent to the same number of officers it takes to fill 1 patrol shift with the minimum staffing allotment. So what are we doing to try to address that? We're in the final stages of background investigations for officer applicants to send to the January 2022 Academy. This hiring process we began with 16 applications. 8 of those went to initial interviews. Of that 8, 6 moved to a background phase, which is a more in-depth investigation into the individual applicant. And of that 6, 2 still remain in the process. We'll be reviewing those final applications this week in consideration for hire. So the average time of receipt of the application, the initial interview, the background process, when they're hired, they go for 20 weeks of training at the Basic Law Enforcement Academy, 3 to 4 months of field training, to when they count as a trained and available officer is approximately 9 months. That's important because the initial cost to the city for a new hire to include the hiring process, equipment to furnish the officer, their pay, benefits, and training is approximately $71,500. As far as some other vacancies that we have a part-time operations technician vacancy that hires for $13.50 an hour for up to 29 hours a week. And we also still have 2 crossing guard vacancies. We've been unsuccessful in finding replacements for the job. It consists of 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, for a total of 10 hours a week. What we've found in trying to fill these part-time positions is part of the struggle to fill them is the low hourly rate that we advertise compared to higher available pay of local part-time jobs within the private sector. So some market comparisons for the base pay of a police officer, and this is as of last week. So our starting pay is approximately $40,000. If we have a certified police officer from another Virginia agency we want to consider for employment and they qualify for what we have with career development as of step 1, it's $43,100. And take-home cars are not yet available below the rank of corporal. So for a regional department starting base pay, and the sources through the internet as far as hiring through human resources for these agencies, Augusta County is currently at $37,886 plus take-home car. Stanton PD is approximately $40,000 with a take-home car available. Harrisonburg is at $40,289.60. Albemarle County is at $41,597 plus take-home availability. Charlottesville is at $44,033.60 plus take-home car availability. UVA is currently at $45,000. And Virginia State Police is at $47,833 plus take-home car availability. So why is competitive pay and career development so important to the Waynesboro Police Department? It's important because we pride ourselves on creating and maintaining positive relationships within our community. By selecting and retaining honest, loyal, and dependable, hardworking employees, we can continually grow those relationships to provide the best police services possible in our community. Where we often struggle is referring back to those 19 of 30 officers that have 0 to 5 years experience. They're still learning to be a police officer at the same time as learning to be part of the community. So it takes time to grow and foster that. As you know, law enforcement nationwide, though, as an industry, is struggling with the recruitment of new employees and also retaining the good ones. So we need to remain competitive and attractive to quality applicants to continue to provide the same levels and quality of service that we do. And we want our sworn and non-sworn employees for careers. We don't want them to view us as a job. So moving on to reporting statistics. And these are as of last week, so we still have some time in the end of the year. These numbers can fluctuate. These are our overall calls for service in 2021 so far. You'll notice some highlights that animal control calls are up 6.1%. Drug-related incidents are down though, 19.5%. Welfare checks are down, and our damaged property calls are also down. Discharging a weapon is also significantly down from last year. So our total calls for service as of approximately November 1st, about 19,496, and we still have about 2 months to go in the year. As far as crimes go, some highlights from this year. Homicide rate is down 33%. We're seeing an increase though in kidnapping or abduction. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have a public epidemic of that. These are incidents though that have cause to be reported as an abduction. Some other crimes of note this year is internet crimes. Pornography is up 30%. We've received a lot more crimes this year through the internet crimes against children commission and other law enforcement referral services. Also this year, our larcenies are down, as well as fraud. As far as total arrests for the year for the department, this year for circuit court, we're up 7.9%. A lot of that can be contributed to that the courts are back on filling the docket, so we're seeing more case intake. Misdemeanor summonses are down 13%. Felony warrants are down 12%. Misdemeanor warrants are down approximately 8.7%. Probation violations, however, are up 7.7%. The police department's only rolling a probation violation in a certain. Mental health calls for this year. Currently, we're sitting as of November 1st, we had 372 calls for service this year. That's 4.9% increase so far this year over last year. With that, magistrate or officer initiated emergency custody orders are down 19.1%, and TDOs or temporary detention orders are down just under 3%. Traffic. So for traffic, so far this year, we're down approximately 4% on crashes. We're down 25% on citations. We're down 22.4% on traffic stops. Our fatalities, we have had 2 unfortunate incidents this year, and DUI arrests are also down 6.4%. So what are our plans going into 2022? Currently, we're running a promotion process for the vacancies of any captain, sergeant, or corporal positions that may occur within the next 12 months. This is something that we typically do annually. However, with this year, it will be for the next 12 months for 2022. We're conducting hiring processes to fill any full or part-time position vacancies that we have available in order to maintain manageable staff levels. Another big highlight that we're going to focus on in 2022 is staff development on certain job sets of replacements needed for pending retirements in 2022 and 2023. We do have some people that are discussing retirement that are in key positions within the agency that are going to require a significant amount of investment into transferring their knowledge, skills, and abilities with their job set to the next person. That's going to be a major focus for us. Another thing we want to do in 2022 is we want to re-engage in community outreach events and activities we have not been able to do because of COVID-19 and staffing. During 2021, we've received several invites to different public forums, also public speaking events, or also community engagement events. Not due to selfishness, we've had to largely turn down any invitations because we've had to focus on our core as far as the staffing for the shifts to meet the minimum staffing needs for the department, and also to minimize the exposure and risk for the officers involved. Continue to work with city officials. We'd like to secure the next phase of our take-home vehicle program, and also continue to work with city officials on pay and career development for all opportunities to enhance for recruitment of competitive applicants and also the retention and quality of employees. And the last thing that's not on the slide that I mentioned previously is also the pushing out the 2 new canines once they're up and running and we have the new officers assigned to them. Thank you for your time this evening. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, or I'll be available after the meeting.
Thank you, Captain Shaw. Does anybody have anything, Captain Shaw? Very good presentation.
Great information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we'll hear from Chief Andrew Holloway, Waynesboro Fire Department. And we can make these PowerPoint presentations available to the general, so I see folks jotting notes, and we can certainly do that.
I was thinking on YouTube, but that's great.
Mayor, members of council, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight regarding our fire department operations. Prior to getting started, I'd like to take a few minutes and just touch base for go over our department operations and the services we provide. The fire department was established here in the city of Waynesboro in 1893 with the primary objective to provide fire protection. Since that time, our services have continued to expand. In addition to providing fire suppression, we provide emergency medical services. These services we provide in a multitude of ways. First and foremost, we provide additional manpower when needed to our Waynesboro First Aid crew. We also, and these are for times that significant EMS calls, that additional manpower is needed. In addition, something that we do in regard to emergency medical services, when the rescue squad has maximized their resources, say due to multiple calls and so forth, where they have more resources available personnel-wise, we stop staffing on our fire apparatus and send personnel across the street to get nails to respond to the medical needs of the community. In addition, we provide technical rescue services to our city. Examples of this would be vehicle accidents where somebody could become trapped in a vehicle. We need to use hydraulic tools or other means to extricate them, and also provide hazardous materials mitigation. With the city having a lot of industry, there's times throughout the year there might be a hazmat release in one of our industries, might be a chemical spill out the roadway and so forth. And providing hazardous materials mitigation is one of our services. While most of our services are reactive, as in after someone is called 911, we also provide proactive services. In regard to examples would be through our fire prevention, providing fire and life safety educational programs to our schools and our community, performing fire and life safety inspections. Examples, doing annual inspections on an either annual or biannual basis, or every year to every 2 years on a regular basis to ensure our businesses are safe. We also administer fire code permits, plans review for future development. An example of the reason we would do plans review for future development is if we're looking at a new subdivision, ensuring that the roadways are putting in are wide enough for our fire apparatus, ensuring that appropriate amount of fire hydrants are available for fire protection means. In addition, we oversee the hazard maintenance program for our city and pre-incident planning. Our pre-incident planning is the purpose to allow our department to conduct operations in the most effective and efficient manner. Snapshot of 2021, to date, we ran 1,792 emergency incidents. In addition to responding to emergency incidents, we've also provided the following services in fire prevention, which I outlined in the previous slide. The specifics, we performed 654 fire inspections, 29 fire investigations. We've conducted 84 plans review, administered 36 permits, 95 child safety steep installs, 7 public ed events, and installed 47 smoke alarms. Again, a number of these, our numbers are down this year due to COVID and other reasons. So normally these numbers would be a little bit higher. Other accomplishments for 2021, first and foremost, we've maintained a continuity of operations as we dealt with this pandemic. In addition to implementing and following CDC and best practices, we've also relocated one engine company to the west end of the city. The reason we did this was for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it would allow us to be a little bit more effective in meeting our guidelines through our policies and so forth, ensuring that our personnel will be able to socially distance. Also, it was more of effective means we felt strategy-wise to split our crews, so that way if we did have an outbreak in one building, we maintain some type of fire protection for the city by maintaining the second building. Kind of a little quick timeline and so forth of how we went through this. We first relocated to the Church of Brethren in Waynesboro at Bridge Avenue. We placed an engine company there. Once the church started opening back up, we relocated that engine company to it's not pictured, but to the house behind the high school, which they own. And we remained there until the high school opened back up. Once the high school opened back up, for a temporary amount of time, we relocated to Residence Inn until we were able to secure a duplex on Adventure Trail, which is about right up the road from the Wright Hyundai dealership. And there, at the Wright Hyundai dealership, we store the fire engine to keep it out of bad weather and so forth. So as of right now, we still maintain a separation where we do have an engine company at that location on Adventure Trail. One of our, that's to me, the most important, in addition to maintaining a continuity of operations, something we're very proud of is this past year we replaced in service a new ladder truck. The previous ladder truck we had was a 1991 and it was no longer functional for service delivery. We've continued to further train and educate our personnel to maintain their high skill level for providing emergency services. We've accomplished over 3,800 hours in training this past year. We've continued to participate and support the regional concept and regional training, the regional technical rescue team, and the regional hazmat team. And what this is by us participating and supporting the regional training, we all share the cost of equipment, instructors, and so forth when training new personnel. So that way, at the end of the day, it's best for our taxpayers and so forth. The regional technical team, technical rescue team, and the hazmat team, those are designed for high risk, low frequency events. So a vehicle crash out here on the roadway where somebody needs to be extricated, we can handle that normally with our staff on duty. However, if we got into more of a significant incident, whether it be a train derailment or say, a cell phone tower where they had workers working on the cell phone tower that needed a high angle rescue, some of those really low frequency events with high risk, that's where we would deploy the technical rescue team. Because we just don't have the possible means, none of our jurisdictions do, to train everybody to be specialists in every area. Other accomplishments from the administrative side of things, we revised and presented to City Council the updated fire protection and fire prevention section of the City Code, which you all approved and implemented. We've also implemented a new software program for more efficiency in our administrative tasks and record management, which include incident reporting, daily scheduling, fire inspections, apparatus maintenance, operational checks, and so forth. We have begun to work on constructing a strategic plan for our department. As you can tell, it's been a very, very busy year for our department. Some of our immediate challenges that we're running into, we are a department of a total of 34 personnel, and they're broken down as follows: 1 fire chief, 1 deputy fire chief, 1 assistant fire marshal. That position has been vacant for some time. We have recently filled that, and we have the individual starting next month. The office manager position, we'll be filling that in the near future. We have 3 captains, each assigned to, we have 3 shifts, so 1 captain is assigned to each shift, 6 lieutenants, and 1 correction on my PowerPoint. I have 12 firefighters. We actually have 18 firefighters. Apologize for that mistake. Currently, we have 3 vacancies, and we're working hard to hopefully get those job offers out this week to get us back up to 100% staffing. Our current operational staff has remained the same since 2007. Other immediate challenges we have as a department is our our salaries in comparison with neighboring jurisdictions. For example, the starting salary for a city of Waynesboro certified firefighter, EMS provider, and driver operator is $32,149. As you can look and see the other departments, Albemarle County is at $40,781. Augusta County is at $38,379. City of Stanton's at $37,889. Rockingham's at $40,400. And Harrisonburg is at $40,309.26. So as you can see, one of our really struggles is trying to not recruit members to our department, but also to try to keep them on board. And a lot of times we really struggle with that because of our competition with our neighboring jurisdictions. The one thing that I've really looked at over time recently and did a lot of research is beyond even our area to see how we're in comparison. And I've yet today to find another department with a starting salary that is at our $32,149 or below that within the state. I'm not saying that we're the lowest salary in Virginia, but I'm confident saying that we're definitely on the lower end of the scale if we compare at this time. And I've again researched a lot of departments. The one thing that we've struggled with is while we've always been the lowest paid department in the area, that is, the gap has continued to widen. Where a year ago, 2 years ago, it wasn't such a big gap between the starting pays. So that's just something that the supply of firefighters has continued to go down. People want to get in this business. And also the service demands went up. We've had a lot of jurisdictions around us that have hired sometimes 12 new additional positions each year. So it really makes it a challenge for us to be able to recruit and retain firefighters. As we move and we discuss our goals and objectives for 2022, we want to continue to work with and communicate the city administration through our budgetary process to improve the salaries of our operational personnel. We want to work towards the procurement and completion of West End fire stations, or the West End fire station. And we want to work with city staff to continue to request the additional staff needed so that we're meeting the needs of our community. We want to continue to work on recruiting and retention of our department. And one of the other items I missed on one of our objectives is working with city staff to improve our West Stage Fire Station, West Broad Street. Some improvements needed there. Apologize, I missed that, just noticed it. So again, we're working, those are some of the goals. When I talk about recruitment and retention for our department, I think if you look at the other slide, that if we were able to improve the salaries, if we were able to eventually grow the department to meet the operational needs, I think those alone would really help us to attain a number of our personnel and help with our recruitment efforts. I think with, obviously salaries is important, but also having infrastructure in place with our fire stations that are modern, being able to keep up with equipment replacement goes a long way where our personnel have pride and ownership in those items. One of the things we're going to continue as administrative staff is, and also work, I believe in working with our operational staff to develop this, is to continue to construct a strategic plan for the department so that we can submit to city administration for consideration in the future. We're going to continue to focus on training and development of our current staff to include a development and implementation of an officer development program. The purpose of this program is to assist us with succession planning. We've had to, over the years, we've lost a total of, since 2015, 35 personnel. Our department is a total of 34 personnel. So a number of personnel came and left. We've been fortunate to maintain some of our senior personnel, but we really have a gap there. We want to work hard to improve our succession planning as a department. Administrative staff will work with our operational personnel to update our department's administrative and operational policies and procedures in the coming year. We also will work to construct and implement a biannual work performance evaluation for all personnel. The reason for this implementation of this goal is the number one killer, or the highest number of line of duty deaths annually, is due to cardiac disease or some type of cardiac event in fire service. And one of the things that we want to improve is when you get hired, when you test regionally to become a career firefighter with one of the localities, you have to do a physical fitness assessment to get hired on. We plan to implement this in the coming year to where you would perform this biannually. Not only does it take care of the individual itself, hold the accountability, but also takes care of other fellow employees to make sure that we're all maintaining a good physical fitness to perform our jobs. We're going to work to adopt and implement best practices for cancer prevention. Nationwide, studies have shown the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health have conducted many studies on this, of cancer in the fire service. Firefighters have a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer than any cancer than in general U.S. population. In addition, firefighters have a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general U.S. population. So while we have a lot of goals and objectives for the next year, each one of these, I think, are to ultimately provide a better service for our community. And that's what our goals are. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, each of you, for the chance to come and speak with you regarding an overall operations of our department that contain also some of our goals and objectives for the new year and some of the challenges that we face. Thank you.
Hey, Chief, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What does it cost to hire and train a new fireman?
So the hire and train a new fireman, so if you look at a set of turnout gear, that's about between $2,600 and $3,100. Depending on if we have any gear at the station with 50 individuals. Obviously, you never know, because it ain't like when we hire somebody, we're doing it to get their size up front to make sure we have gear. So sometimes we can get by with gear that we have in stock, but if not, that's usually the cost. When it talks about training, that all is dependent on the level of training they're coming in the door with. Because whatever we require, we have to pay them overtime to meet our minimum training requirements. So let's say if we get them in the door and they only have firefighter 1 and 2 and EMT, we're looking at various 16-hour courses here and there. We're looking at another 40-hour course and another subject matter. So again, it all varies depending upon the training levels. But I could work with you, or I'd be more than glad to provide the city manager with a breakdown of that if you'd like.
Anyone else have questions for the Chief? Good, they're all good.
Thank you.
So next we'll hear from Emergency Operations, Mr. Gary Kreitzer. All right, Gary, you're the senior director here, so we're counting on you to work efficiently.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about an update on the Department of Emergency Management and EMS. Our department is divided into 4 divisions. We first and foremost are responsible for emergency communications for the 911 Center, more commonly referred to as the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. We're responsible for emergency management, which is preparation, response, mitigation, and recovery from major natural disasters. We've been very heavily involved in the COVID pandemic, both within our workforce and in the community. We're responsible under city code for the coordination of emergency medical services and work closely with our fire department, with our nonprofit local first aid crew, which is a career and volunteer agency in the community. And also our police department provides some EMS services in light that they carry AEDs on the police cars, and they're assigned to part of our emergency response chain. And also our department's responsible for citywide employee health and safety. So we're going to go through each one of those divisions really briefly. In emergency communications, our dispatchers are responsible for receiving and dispatching the appropriate public safety resources. They provide pre-arrival instructions and coordinate all that response. Pre-arrival instructions means that they may tell someone how to do CPR or control bleeding, or in one case, we've delivered a baby over the telephone before EMS could arrive. We also provide after-hours contact for our Public Works Operations Division for things such as sewer backups, water main breaks, et cetera, that happen after normal business hours. Our 911 center is an accredited emergency medical dispatch public safety answering point through the Virginia Department of Health, which was a big accomplishment. It requires some standards that we have to comply with, and quality assurance to make sure that we're delivering the services that we should. We have an enhanced 911 call processing system. It was just recently upgraded through a state 911 services board grant, about $225,000 total, which makes us next generation 911 ready. Next generation 911 is a rollout nationwide. Virginia is ahead of that curve. I attended a 911 services board meeting today, and we are implementing this across the nation. It brings to the 911 community some pretty big changes that comply with and allow us to use technology that's out there. Traditionally, 911 is delivered over copper telephone lines. You get the location and the calling party number. We've been able with cell phones to get their location on a map. However, with next generation 911, it's delivered over IP systems, voice over IP. Copper phone lines go away. It allows us to, once you get into that network, you can add all types of features, such as delivery of video from a cell phone or pictures directly to 911, which can then be transmitted out to the responders. Part of that also is text to 911. We've been accepting text to 911 calls for the last right at a year now. It's not an overwhelming number of calls, but it does provide enhancement for our hearing impaired that use cell phones, as well as people in a situation where they're unable to verbally communicate with us. We use a priority dispatch system for EMS. A lot of times we get questions about, well, I called for an ambulance, and I got an ambulance, a fire truck, and a police car. Well, how did all that come? It depends on the resources that are needed. It depends on the resources that are available in our community. You heard Chief Holloway talk about the fire department providing resources in the event that our EMS agency is out of resources. We oftentimes have 4 or 5 EMS calls deep at one time. The first aid crew staffs with a minimum of 2 paramedic level ambulances 24 hours a day. If those resources are depleted, the fire department will pick up the difference. If they're out of resources, then we have to go to a neighboring community. We also have a community notification system, more commonly known in the past as reverse 911. That allows us, using GIS technology and our cell phone infrastructure, as well as for those that still have landline phones, to make emergency notifications. Using that system, we can notify the entire city of Waynesboro in less than 30 minutes. Some statistics for the Emergency Communications Center from 2020. We had about 59,000, close to 60,000 total telephone interactions that our dispatchers handled. About 14,871 of those were emergency 911 calls. 44,000, close to 45,000 were non-emergency or administrative calls. and we had 440 text to 911 interactions. That resulted in 32,223 dispatched incidents. You can see the numbers for the various service functions for police, EMS, fire, public works. We also deal with calls, what we call 911 hang-up calls that were cleared by the dispatcher. That's when someone calls 911 and hangs up before we can answer. A lot of those are accidental dials. We have problems sometimes with children calling 911, and we have to clear those calls by callback or verifying that everything is okay. Our staffing is our most valuable resource in 911. We are authorized for 13 full-time staff, 1 director, 4 supervisors, and 8 telecommunicators. We currently have, as of last week, we had 4 vacant positions in the full-time telecommunicator. We recently filled one. They started today. The average time from hire for someone who's not trained and has no 911 experience takes 6 to 9 months before they're ready to handle the job on their own. So they'll be in on-the-job training, as well as taking certification programs and having to attend the Criminal Justice Training Academy before they're released to work on their own. We also have 4 part-time telecommunicators and a part-time office manager. In 2020, we lost some senior folks. 911 is not always, unlike our counterparts in public safety and police and fire, 911 is not generally a career. It's usually a point where folks come in and they're there for a few years and they move on. They want to be a police officer, a firefighter, a paramedic. We've had some go to nursing school. We had one that actually, I believe, went to medical school. Different professions, but we seem to be a stopping off point, and that's pretty standard nationwide. Last year, however, we lost some career 911 telecommunicators. We lost 2 30-year employees that had been with the city since we opened our doors in 1990. And we lost another 10-year veteran that had to retire because of medical reasons. So we've lost some senior folks over the last year. Part of our challenges with recruitment and retention, you've heard it from my 2 counterparts in police and fire, is salary. I don't have the numbers up there, but I can certainly provide them to you. Our salary is the lowest in the region for starting salary for 911 dispatchers. The job is stressful. It's long hours, nights, weekends, and holidays. We see very low numbers of applicants, even before COVID, but it's even worse now as we're hopefully coming to the end of COVID. We have 1 out of 3 that are able to complete the background process. I did mention earlier that there was a lengthy training time, 6 to 9. It can take as much as 12 months if they've never worked in a 911 environment before. And nationally, there's been a lot of research done about PTSD as a major factor in retention in 911. Unlike our counterparts in public safety, 911 dispatchers go from one call to the next, and there's not a lot of break in between. So they can be in one call telling a frantic mother how to do CPR on her baby, to the next call having an elderly person who's frightened in the middle of the night because someone's breaking in their home. We have to stay on the phone with them. To the next call, you're dealing with an armed robbery or shooting, and it just goes from one to the next, and they get very little closure. That's resulted in problems nationwide. Nationally, there is a 911 staffing crisis. I added this today. This just came out in our meeting today. 35% of 911 positions nationwide are vacant. And that comes from our National Emergency Number Association. That's pretty significant that we have that much trouble recruiting and maintaining 911 employees. So our budget priorities for emergency communications is to reevaluate our salary and become more competitive in the region. But unlike our counterparts in fire and law enforcement and even in EMS, we compete pretty heavily with the private sector. Not so much with our other 911 centers, but even with the private sector. Folks are going to other places where they can make $15 to $20 an hour as a starting salary. whether it's in retail, it's in light industry, and it's hard to compete with that. One of our biggest projects that's out there, and this actually is not just for EOC, it's for our entire public safety system, is support for our Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro regional trunk digital radio system. Currently, all three jurisdictions operate on independent analog conventional radio systems. We've looked at this before, and the technology has driven it to a point where it's time to make that leap. It's an expensive venture, but it will position the three localities, our public works and our school divisions, in a really good place for 15 to 20 years. It's fully interoperable, meaning that we can communicate across bands, both in our region, in our own locality, and with folks that come in a major emergency. We'd have that interoperable communications. In emergency management, we talked briefly about that. We're responsible for planning, coordination, and direction for all hazards emergencies. That means anything from natural disasters, pandemics, man-made disasters, hazmat events. We help plan and include our counterparts in our other public safety divisions, as well as public works, city administration, et cetera, in that planning process. We look at preparation, which includes planning, training, exercises, public education, and risk assessments. To response, which is coordinating the response to the emergency notification and evacuation of our citizens. Recovery, which is helping to coordinate cleanup, rebuilding, debris removal, and then mitigation efforts to prevent reoccurrence or minimize future impact. We've had great success with that in the past. Following the floods in 1996, we were able to obtain well over $1 million in Homeland Security or FEMA grant funds to acquire homes in the floodplain to mitigate future flood losses. And those, by removing those properties, have actually found that flood levels have been affected in those neighborhoods and actually lessened flooding damage. We review and approve emergency plans for all licensed nursing and assisted living facilities as required by Virginia Code. We work with other departments to provide DHS grants, local emergency management program grants, and other local funding. And we coordinate with all of our local, regional, state, and federal partners in the private sector. One of the things we're really proud about is that during the pandemic, there was a development of a public-private partnership between the three localities, Augusta Health, the health department, and a number of our private sector community service organizations to create an all-of-community response to COVID. And that's been incredibly successful in mitigating the effects for everything from the homeless population to the elderly population, et cetera, and making sure that we met the needs during the pandemic. EMS is directed under Chapter 28 of the City Code, and our department is responsible. We coordinate our EMS system response with our police, fire, and our local first aid crew. We assist with EMS training and continuing education. We represent the city at regional and state levels. Our primary transport agency in the city is our nonprofit Waynesboro First Aid Group, which has evolved from an all-volunteer organization to an organization now that's staffed predominantly by career paramedics, 24 hours a day, supplemented by volunteers. Our Waynesboro Fire Department is licensed as an advanced life support transport agency that backs up the Waynesboro First Aid crew and uses their resources. We can provide EMT to paramedic advanced life support in the city with very advanced treatment protocols. Our rescue squad bills for services through a program called Revenue Recovery, where we bill insurance. In some cases, they balance bill to the patient. We have about a 30 to 35% non-pay rate, and that helps to offset the cost for our local. The first aid crew themselves do the billing. The city does not do that, and they get the receipts from that billing, and that helps to offset their expenses by about 55 to 60% of their budget. Challenges in EMS is recruitment and retention of career staff and volunteers. There's funding challenges through CMS changes to performance-based billing. Again, I mentioned revenue recovery, actually about 65 to 70% of the budget. They're increasing cost of delivering medical services. A new ambulance costs about $220,000 to $250,000, depending on what equipment is on it. Durable medical equipment costs, for example, a cardiac monitor that's carried on every truck costs about $35,000. And there's increasing demand for services. Longer life, aging population equals increased calls for service. Mobile integrated healthcare is a new buzzword out there, sometimes heard as community paramedicine, where EMS gets involved in doing preventative care to prevent emergency calls and 911 calls, partnering with the local health system. So those are all things that are going to be challenging. Revenue challenges have resulted in increased need for city support for sustainment of that current system. And you'll be hearing more about that in future months. Health and safety, we manage the city's workers' compensation program. We manage the pre-employment and annual physical exam program for our public safety partners. We provide health and safety training to all city departments, and we manage the Line of Duty Act program for public safety. We ensure compliance with federal and state OSHA requirements, working with our Human Resources Department. And we worked closely with our departments to provide COVID personal protective equipment. We've done exposure management, coordinating testing and vaccine and isolation and quarantine of our workforce. Our comprehensive department has continued to serve through the COVID pandemic, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it's a pleasure to be able to serve our citizens. Any questions from anyone?
Great presentation.
Thank you all very much.
Good job, Gary. And finally, we hear from Steve Von Schilling, the sheriff.
Mayor Henderson, members of council, Mr. Hank and staff, thank you for this opportunity. Prepared to speak tonight on staffing. Just a brief, to let you know that the courts kept going through the pandemic. It was a challenge. I'd like to commend every member of the sheriff's office that we adapted and kept moving forward. Transports kept on mainly with 1 out of the 3 courts. We did stop October 29th through November 18th, and then the chief judge ordered that all, because there was a breakout in the jail, the chief judge ordered that all the inmates transport cease through the end of the year, December 31st of 2020. So the sheriff's office is responsible for 2 areas of operation: civil process, courtroom/courthouse security, civil process, jury summons, evictions, repossessions, out of jurisdiction, inmate transports, etc., and they're scheduled around the court docket. Court security function of the sheriff's office is assisted by 4 part-time employees responsible for the operation of the metal detectors at the entrance to each courthouse. Unfortunately for us, we have 2 separate entrances that must be covered. With the retirement of Sheriff Harris, that left the position open. I was able to hire in as a part-time, and then move to a temporary deputy to fill that position. I'll show you in a later slide, the whole office. So we're currently, out of the 4, we only have 3 for the courthouse entrances. Civil process includes writs of eviction, detenue repossessions, and fire effacious executions. Then again, courthouse and courtroom security. Inmate transports, out of jurisdiction for court. If there's somebody being held, say in Albemarle County, and they have a court day in Waynesboro General District Court, it's up to the sheriff's office to go get them and bring them here. Same for the other courts. Those arrested on capias from our courts, that's become almost non-existent, which hurts the Waynesboro PD. We had Waynesboro arrest warrant on a capias. They call over to us and we transport them up to the Middle River, but that's been about the last year and a half, almost non-existent. Transport of juveniles from the detention center to court. And it says there's little to no notice, which the detention center is right there next to Middle River Regional Jail. We also have to take juveniles to the dentist, health department, orthodontist, or a psych eval. We also, with the staffing in the sheriff's office, if somebody's at Crossroads and committed to Western State, that's a phone call. We have to have somebody available because we have about 30, once they call, we have about 30, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to go pick them up and take them to Western State. Now I'll touch on something with transports also. Somebody's done serving their time and they're in another jurisdiction, say like Salem. When they're done there and then they have to come here to finish out, they're still being held on Waynesboro charges, then we have to go pick them up and bring them here to Middle River until they're done with our court. So that's just an example. So you're looking at hours, man hours for transport, but that can be all across the Commonwealth. Staffing level, we've got Waynesboro PD beat by a little bit. I think they were 1990. We've had the same since 1978. And there's a sheriff, secretary, chief deputy, and 3 full-time deputies. I put this slide in here because we were working on this from this year, but it also, when the numbers were regular prior to COVID, just gives you just an idea. Civil process, paper served 15,144. Some papers we do serve are personal service only. So if we come looking for you, we have to give it to you hand to hand. If not, we leave a card and hopefully you'll call us back and then we can get you. Jury summons is 861, evictions 214. Evictions, we don't know, we set them in between the court docket, but if we show up and the landlord's had trouble with this person and they want to, we call it set out, which means remove all the furniture and make them stand to the curb, then we have to stand there for that entire time until such is completed. Also, inmate transports for that month that I picked here is 243, and you see it's an average of man hours of 52 for the month. Civil process, from right to left, 2018, 2019, 2020, you can see we went down with the pandemic, 11,706. As of October of 2021, we're at 9,563. Not a good graphic because of the thousands there on the left, but in the bottom middle, transports. From right to left, 2018, 2019, 2020, 328, 243, and 111. Now those transports are a Waynesboro sheriff's deputy going and picking somebody up, kind of as I explained earlier. That doesn't even include what we get from Middle River. This is just a code section of Virginia 53.1120 states the sheriff shall designate deputies who shall ensure the courthouse and courtrooms within his or her jurisdiction are secure from violence and disruption. So by the comp board, staffing standards are set: circuit court 2 bailiffs, JDR court 1 bailiff, and general district court 1 bailiff. Our security is not up to the same standard as other jurisdictions. Virginia Sheriff's Association recommends 2 deputies at each courthouse entrance. Again, like I said before, unfortunately, we have 2 separate entrances. Circuit Court has its own, and General District and JDR share one. It's also best practice to have 2 deputies per court. JDR is a volatile court. You have child custody situations. Children may be taken away, such as Department of Social Services. Another thing that we run into is with the holding juveniles and adults, of course, must be kept separate. But when it comes to short staff, that makes it more difficult or needing an extra deputy to do that. So a deputy in the courtroom has to control the courtroom, watch inmates if they're there for the court, which we have cameras to the holding rooms, and also be able to respond to courthouse incidents or a court alarm if, so there's an incident in another court, there's several courts going on. These are the court schedules. Circuit Court, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. JDR is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and the first Friday of each month. And General District is Tuesday and Thursday. This doesn't take into the account of jury trials that are sometimes set for 2 days on, and they overlap the courts. There's sometimes we could have 3 courts going at once. And during COVID, the jury trials have been set for 2 days just because of the jury selection process. We also have one scheduled at the end of November. And then we have a 5-day jury trial coming up in December. That's just another way to show you how the manpower is. In the event all 3 courts are in session and office staff is full staff, and that leaves the sheriff is the only one free to supervise evictions, repossessions, serve civil process, or just relieve somebody for a break. And if the office is at less than full staff due to vacation, training, or illness, and there's no one free to move inmates to court when jail arrives or departs, they drop them off in the Sally Port. No lunch breaks for deputies. Oftentimes what will happen is court is over with, but we still have inmates to watch, so the deputy has to stay in court until such time as the jail comes back, or the jail might just come back and pick up the morning inmates and drop off the inmates for after lunch. Just down at the bottom there, during the 2019, there was 10 times we had to close the office. And this is what it looks like when, this is the whole staff, and that's what it looks like when all 3 courts are in session. It leaves just the sheriff. So, as I showed you, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, effective June 24th of 2019, Judge Dreyer changed the circuit court schedule to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of each week. Prior to that, it wasn't really, it was kind of random, but it was more like a Monday, Wednesday, and then we averaged only 6 to 9 days a month. This is the court days per year, as you see at the bottom from 17 right to left. General District and JDR, as you see, pretty much stay the same. We did go down a little bit there to 97 in the middle for COVID. The projection prior to COVID was 144 days for circuit court all the way to the left, which we ended up at 104, so it did slow us down a little bit there. Also, the emergency orders are lifting. Evictions are back on, and we expect the numbers to go back up. Officer safety and security concerns. The staffing of the sheriff's office is at an absolute minimum level for providing security to the courthouse. As I said before, the use of 2 deputies in each courtroom is recognized as best practice. And depending on the docket, it's not uncommon to have 12 to 18 inmates here for various courts at one time. And on several occasions, the bailiff work in General District, which there's only one bailiff in General District, has been responsible for as many as 6 to 8 inmates in addition to courtroom security. Vacations, that's just showing you what we have a total of 18 weeks to cover. Also must cover the part-timers on the magnetometer for requested days off. Just gives you a little bit on the training. Sheriff and each deputy must attend approximately 70 hours of training per year, maintain certifications. That involves firearms, active violence. Sheriff Harris has requested from the comp board for the last 20 years an extra position, and he's requested from the city the last 2 years for an extra position. Also, along with all public safety, you get into hiring these. We had the last deputy we hired, we only had 3 applicants, but pay is also a matter when it comes to that. I thank you for your time and would entertain any questions.
Anyone have questions for Acting Sheriff? Steve, thank you for coming in and presenting this. I met with Steve this past week, and we went over these numbers here. And I was really troubled by what I saw in the numbers and security procedures. So over the coming weeks, I'd like to have a meeting with each one of you individually. And while we're here, Steve, I'd like to recognize the Sheriff-elect, Mr. Chris Johnson. He's our new sheriff. He'll take over in January. Unfortunately, after all we heard tonight, there's going to be one more police officer that Waynesboro Police Department, the Sheriff's Department picks up another one. So, Steve, do you have something else?
I was just gonna say I can make myself available if council has any more questions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This is the first we've heard from staff in this detail. I think it was a great session for all of us to hear this. So we appreciate all the employees of the public services and public agencies that take care of us. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for some information to share tonight. With that, we move on to item number 10. Item number 10 is to consider adopting a resolution accepting a settlement from the opioid abatement and settlement fund. Ms. Michelson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. In July of 2021, the 3 largest pharmaceutical distributors and 1 manufacturer have reached a global settlement that promises to provide up to $26 billion in value nationwide. Approximately $23 billion of that potential value will be available to state and local governments as compensation and for abatement of the harm caused by the opioid epidemic. Additionally, the settlements will offer injunctive relief that will compel the settling defendants to change their business practices in meaningful ways. The settlements hinge on participation by governmental entities, including the city. Virginia has already endorsed and elected to participate in these settlements for these 4 opioid defendants. Settlement will be in lieu of any trials, which would not be even occurring from years from now. So the settlement will provide a much more immediate access to these funds for opioid recovery and abatement. The total distribution to states is slated to be $22.8 billion, paid out over 18 years. Each state's share of the total value of the settlements, and it's important to understand that there's going to be 2 pools of this $22.8 billion. One pool will be the base guaranteed payments to each state, and one pool, which is $12.2 billion, and the other pool, which is $10.8 billion, will be incentives that the states can achieve depending on how many localities participate within that state. Virginia's allocation percentage of that $22.8 billion, Virginia's share is a little over 2.28%. And an individual state's share of the total value of the settlement amounts doesn't increase or decrease depending on whether 1 or 50 of the states participate. It's dependent rather on how many localities within Virginia join the settlement. Therefore, Virginia's ability to maximize its recovery under the settlements is dependent upon Virginia's participation rates, like the city of Waynesboro's participation. Therefore, the participation by the city is critical to maximizing Virginia's and therefore the city's ultimate recovery amounts. When everything comes out of the wash, assuming that a sufficient number of Virginia localities participate for Virginia to achieve the maximum incentive allocations, Virginia could receive up to $530 million from these four defendants. And it's also important to note that there are other defendants that the Commonwealth of Virginia is entering into settlement negotiations with. So this is just one of potentially several settlements that will be occurring in the next year or two. So of this anticipated 530 million, there is a complicated structure that we've gone over recently in the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Attorney General's Office and the Commonwealth of Virginia, that sets out a structure for distributing these funds to, cities and counties within Virginia. The 30% of Virginia's share will go to all counties in Virginia, participating counties in Virginia. So assuming that Virginia got the 530 million, 30% would be 159 million goes directly to political subdivisions. If you recall from our discussions of the MOU, of that direct funds, 50% must be used for approved opioid abatement programs, and 50% can be used on anything. It's general unrestricted funds of the city. So assuming that Virginia received the 530 million and political subdivisions received 159 million, Waynesboro percentage is 0.363%. So Waynesboro would directly receive 577,000, half of which 288,000 would be unrestricted and half would be for abatement purposes. 55% of the 530 million would go to what the Commonwealth is calling the abatement authority. It's a separate agency set up by the Commonwealth to monitor this settlement and like settlements, to provide information and guidelines for localities on, for example, what is approved abatement purposes, and also will be monitoring and providing grants to localities. That's the indirect funds that the city may be available to participate in addition to the direct funds that it will be receiving. So 55% goes to the authority. The authority is off the bat going to take 15% of that $291 million that it's going to receive, and also provide a direct distribution to all the localities based on that same percentage rate that was already established in the MOU. So of that 15% going directly to localities, Waynesboro would be receiving $160,000. And then the remaining amount, the 70%, is for the training and grants and other programs that the city may be able to apply for and obtain as well. So in total, giving the council a better perspective of potentially what the city could expect from that $22 billion of payments, it would expect roughly 730,000 would come to the city directly, either for its general use or for abatement programs. And that 730,000 wouldn't come in one lump sum. It would come over, a series of years of payments. So again, that just gives you an idea, and to achieve that amount of money, it's important for the city to participate in the settlements. And the attorney that was handling the litigation on behalf of the city and myself have reviewed all of these settlements documents, which are very lengthy and complex, but we do recommend that the city, this is the best interest of the city, and it's a good settlement overall for the city, and hopefully other localities will participate and maximize Virginia's potential recovery. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions? And Dr. Hofstadter is a physician, and he's not going to be voting for this either because he has great results of the medicine. So the three of us voting tonight. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
One abstention.
One abstention. Thank you all very much. And that brings us to item number 11, which is correspondence communication calendar. Mr. Ham.
I don't have anything, pardon me, I don't have anything this evening, sir.
All right, that brings us to item number 12. And item number 12 is to receive citizen comments. And for citizen comment, I would like to remind you there's going to be a light over here that indicates red, yellow, green. While you're on green, you'll have about 3.5 minutes to tell you the story of what happens here. Then yellow will come on and the indication will start winding down, and then it comes on. And then each time you will not be engaged in conversation, you're here to collect information from you. And then other times you want to say, I can talk about situation or issue that you need to talk about. So with that, I open up the public hearing. I mean, not public hearing, the citizen comment period.
Yes, sir. Lindsay Huffman, followed by Cheryl Carey.
Cheryl Carey.
I see Lindsay.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Huffman, and I am here tonight to talk about a recent proposal that was regarding a bid to contract the services of the Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center to an outside party. While this does have potential to be an amazing, a positive increase in life-saving when the foundation is built by all of the people in this room that have come out tonight to express our concerns about this proposal, Mr. Ham. What is most concerning is that it does not include any of the okay, so I'm actually going to read what I wrote. As you look around the room tonight, you see a group of people who have spent the better part of the last 10 years pouring their hearts and souls, sacrificing time, money, family, friends, vacations, hobbies, and so much more to see animal welfare in Augusta County, Stanton, and Waynesboro changed for the better once and for all. Not only have we improved the outcomes for homeless pets in our communities, we have exceeded all expectations by changing the culture around how people of Augusta County, Stanton, and Waynesboro view shelter animals and the issues surrounding them. Choosing to go backwards after so much positive movement forward over the past 10 years would not only be degrading to those of us who have and continue to fight daily to save countless lives who enter our care, but would highly jeopardize your integrity with your constituents as well. You may have figured out that a majority of your population is highly invested in providing a safe and compassionate place for the animals of our community. The items that I'm requesting to be added to the contract are measures to ensure that Augusta County, Stanton, and Waynesboro will continue to be a safe place for pets, and the hard work and dedication of many will not be destroyed. By not including basic measurement of accountability to meet a 90% or above live release rate, all animals that enter care have the potential to, this has the potential to allow thousands of pets to die each year without consequence. 10 years ago, we began a movement to bring compassion and open mind to the forefront of how our community handles homeless pets. It was started simply as we knew we had to do better. We knew that in 2010, a 42% live release rate was unacceptable. We knew we needed to change. We knew we could do better. In 2011, our prayers were answered with the formation of SDASC. Even though space was tight and resources slim, we found new hope in the future of the animals of our community. Today in Augusta County, Stanton, and Waynesboro, if your pet makes it into the shelter, it has a 96% chance of walking out the door alive. The standards have been set and our community will not accept any less. The second amendment I'm asking to be added to this contract is the care of animals remain the highest priority, including medical care. I very clearly understand the guidelines surrounding the basic care that must be provided under Virginia state law. However, this organization has set a much higher standard for treating our shelter population's both physical and emotional needs. In order to assure this continues, the contract should consist of measurable standards to ensure the chosen organization meets guidelines set higher than the current state laws allow. Yeah, sorry. Including but not limited to the treatment and rehabilitation of all treatable illness, injury, and rehabable behavior. By setting these standards, you don't allow for lack of transparency when considering the untreated medical or behavioral pets that are euthanized. The final item to include regards the very heart and soul of the organization. Those that have gone above and beyond to ensure the integrity of SBASC remains intact no matter what obstacles have been thrown in their way. Staff that have endured a pandemic like real heroes, have stuck through various leadership changes or lack thereof, have adapted to limited resources and support, all at the same time never compromising the objective to get them out alive or skimping on their care. By not valuing the staff as an amazing resource they are, it seems like a dehumanizing gesture. By not including job security in this proposal. By not acknowledging the fact which this movement has proven to be successful only through the passion and dedication of those who have tirelessly invested every shred of energy within to do so. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I have been asked countless times how we could save so many lives with what we had. And the answer has always been, it's the people. So I really hope that you'll consider these things as amendments to the contract. Thank you.
Cheryl Carey.
We're going to ask you to try to stay closer to that 4 minutes. We've got a lot of people here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cheryl Carey, and I just wanted to say that I support the speaker who just came before me. It's very important to take care of animals and make sure that they are provided for and not just thrown away. I heard about the animals, the amount that is to be in a household, that was coming up to
We've
some,
done away with that.
you've done away with it completely? Good, okay. My next thing. Leaves. You talk about the leaves all the time, not to put them in the street, yet the leaves are all in the street. And right now I see landscaping companies, twice I've seen them blow them in the stormwater drains instead of picking them up. I mean, we want to take care of the water, and I don't know if you should go around and put hang tags on people's doors or what, but you say something on your website about leaves, yet everyone puts them in the street, clogs it, and as I said, they are being pushed down into the storm drains. I videoed it. The other thing is Main Street. We have buildings that for over 5 years that I've been here are deteriorating. I always hear someone's buying something. They smell of mildew. The city looks run down. I don't know why we're not enforcing that the owners take care of the buildings, tear them down, sell them, whatever, but it's ruining the look of our Main Street. Red lights, constant people blowing through red lights. How many people have got to be killed? A friend of mine was killed. When you're at a red light, it turns green. I think most of us don't go through right away. We're looking to see if someone is going to blow through the red light. And it's not just one person going through a yellow. Sometimes it's 3 cars going through a red light. If you need money, this is the way to break up some money in the coffers. A couple times a week, get the police there and just start writing tickets. It's got to stop. It's enough with texting. But the red lights, they're blowing through them. And I know everyone has seen it happen. I hope you're not some of them. The other thing is when you are approving designs of buildings, please look at the aesthetics. I see a street, buildings right across from the theater on Lou DeWitt. The back of the building is right on Lou DeWitt. So you see the meters, the air conditioning, it looks horrible. When we build new buildings, we want it to be aesthetically pleasing and not already start looking run down and dumpy. So I don't know who's approving the design, but it should be improving our city with buildings, not seeing like it's a back alley on Lou DeWitt. And I'd like to know where I can find out how many illegal immigrants are in our city and how many Afghans are in our city. I've seen some. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if you know the numbers, but I think with all you're talking about homeless people in our city, I'd like to see our citizens not homeless before we provide for others. So I'd like to call the office tomorrow or the next day, and if you don't know, someone should know, because they're getting room, medical, food, and money, and we don't have it. And the other thing I was very surprised about is the low pay of police officers, healthcare, and that. Little Debbie's is paying $21 an hour. So I think we should pay our police officers, health, firemen, and that, at least that. Thank you.
Evelyn Cotton and Corey Welch. Okay.
Thank you. I can see it now too.
Are you Corey? Are you Ms. Welch?
I am Miss Welch.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you guys for your undivided attention. I know it's been a very long night. Oh, yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I have a great smile too, so. Sure. All right, so my name is Corey Welch. I live on the corner of 14th and Chestnut Avenue, so the Greenway project directly affects me. I was originally unaware of the full scope and impact of the Greenway project, but have recently been made aware of 2 overarching issues that do concern me. First, this project was originally proposed to the residents living along the river and was quickly shut down as unpopular. There were then 3 different proposals for the project presented and voted upon by residents with a majority won, which is now the current project design as it lives today, essentially allowing the residents to pick the best of the 3 options that were presented, without considering suggestions and modifications from the public who were asked to vote. This leads me to the second of my overarching issues or concerns. My understanding is this project falls under a highway safety improvement grant. The current project scope does not improve safety. In fact, it increases the safety risk for current residents in the tree streets and anyone passing through in vehicles or as pedestrians. For example, it decreases vehicular and pedestrian separation, which my mother addressed at the meeting in October, and when she spoke about the overall spirit of what a greenway actually is and the intentions behind what a greenway should be. Second, in the last 12 to 18 months, there has been an armed robbery at the gas station 1 block away from my house, a separate shooting a couple houses up, as well as numerous vehicular break-ins that I believe one of our law enforcement officers indicated has been an increase this year. The current scope of the Greenway project will now force residents to walk further from their cars to their houses with already inadequate street lighting, along unlevel, broken, and or missing sidewalks altogether. There's a lot of elderly people that live in our neighborhoods. I'm pregnant, and we're walking further to my house with a baby in tow, right? So there is a considerable lack of stop signs at many streets along 14th Street, resulting in the street essentially becoming a drag race speedway. I sit on my porch, in my living room, in bed, and I listen to them go up and down the streets all day and all night long at 45, 55 miles per hour. I have significant concerns with this one, as there are 19 children, 20 on the way, that live in just the 500 block alone of Chestnut Avenue, okay? It is wonderful to see them outside, all of the kids on the 500 block of Chestnut Avenue playing on a regular basis, enjoying many aspects of childhood that I think we could all think back about and be reminiscent of in our own childhood, of being carefree and being able to be safe out and about using our imaginations and playing. At the end of the day, every single day, I am very concerned that we are going to have an irreversible, catastrophic event with the negligent driving behavior of the people that drive up and down the tree streets. So these are just 3 of many examples. I could go on, and I'm doing really well on time, so if you guys want me to keep going, I will. But I challenge in a very kind and respectful and gracious way and urge our city council members to revisit this spirit and the details of this project and reappropriate these funds to better serve the safety of the residents of Waynesboro while still providing a really great atmosphere for our pedestrians on foot as well as in bicycles. Thank you.
Okay, Wayne Nolde and Lori Day.
I'm Wayne Nolde. I live in Mount Sydney, and here as a representative of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at 565 Pine Avenue in Waynesboro. I'd like to thank you for your continued efforts to refine the design of the Greenway Trail Phase 3 project before taking action on the current design. Excuse me. I've made numerous trips to 14th Street lately to count parked vehicles, and I have observed numerous pedestrians walking along the street on the sidewalks that do need a bunch of repair. And also last Sunday, I observed pedestrians walking in the street in the blocks that have no sidewalk. So I would ask you to think very much about improving the sidewalks as part of this project. I believe that the number of pedestrians using the bike pit facility will greatly exceed the number of bicyclists. So I request that the city have its staff or its consultants to spend a day or more actually talking to those that use the Greenway to see who will be using the new section. I really believe it's going to be more pedestrians than bicyclists, and that the cyclists that will use it would use it whether or not we have separated bike lanes or not. I understand that the data the city currently has just has total number of passers-by, shall we say, and we've not been able to get that separation between bike and pedestrian users. My review of the crash data on VDOT's website would indicate that there is definitely an issue on Wayne Avenue, and that is the greatest number of crashes in the project area, regardless of which route that you're considering. So I'm not at all saying that there isn't something that needs to be done as far as a highway safety improvement project. I'd just like to see as much as possible those funds be used to improve safety. Also, I would point out that some research I've done on VDOT's bike pedestrian guidelines would indicate that parking spaces can be placed adjacent to the bike lanes. So in the current design, this would be not only across from the travel lane, would also be on the north side, adjacent to where the bike lanes are proposed. I think that would give an opportunity to address the concerns that many residents along 14th Street had, and maybe a win-win for everybody. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, sir.
So Lori Day, followed by Sally Williams.
Good evening, I'm Laura Day, and I come tonight to speak on behalf of the shelter, the animal shelter, and I do appreciate the opportunity to come tonight. My first visit to Shenandoah Valley Animal Service Center was about 5.5 years ago. I had lost my cat, and I walked in the doors of the shelter with a very strong preconceived notion based on the abysmal and vile reputation that the SPCA in Stanton had with their care of animals. And that's what I expected of the animal shelter, and I was wrong. I was treated with great compassion and care and help as I searched for my cat. They helped me, they gave me tips, they supported me, and I became part of them. I started volunteering. I started fostering, and started working with the shelter on a regular basis. When I first got there, I was heartbroken to see that it's a tiny, underfunded, sad little place. And then I got involved and saw the miracles and the work that happens there. And I know that not everybody cares about animals the way that I do, but this isn't just about animals, it's about people. There are so many people in Stanton, Waynesboro, Augusta County that love animals. And even if they don't love animals the way that I do, they care about their welfare. They don't want to see them abused or hurt. So my first concern with the shelter was the save rate, how many animals make it alive. The SPCA had horrible statistics. I think the ones I've seen were back before the shelter came into existence. And at that point, about 80% of the cats that entered the door of the SPCA were euthanized, were killed. I have 4 cats of my own, 2 of which were adopted from the shelter and 1 who is a foster from the shelter. All of these cats would have been immediately euthanized for various reasons. They're great cats. They needed somebody to put some time into them, work through health issues, things like that. It's heartbreaking and unnecessary to euthanize healthy animals, and that's what the situation used to be. So they've come so far, in the years that the shelter's been open, and they've done great work. And my concern is, I understand that it may not be y'all's top priority, but there's a stand Augusta County, maybe they would be willing to step up and kind of take the role that Waynesboro's had with the shelter. I'm very concerned that someone will win the contract who is not committed to the care of the animals, who is not committed to giving them the health care or saving their lives. It's very easy for somebody to give you a bid and say, we're going to save you a lot of money, but they can do a 5 or 7 day hold on the animals and then euthanize them. There was a situation just recently where a cat, an elderly cat, was found and was put into a foster home. And it turned out that the family had been looking for that cat for months. And it was able to be reunited with its home. So what I'm asking here, because I'm about out of time, is I'm asking y'all to work with us, to get input. I'm asking for you to only give a contract to somebody who will commit to the high save rate, who will commit to the staff, and who is willing to do what's best, not just for the animals, but for the community at large. The community, the city governments reap the benefits of an excellent shelter reputation. And if we go back to a high kill shelter, there will be consequences, and it's going to reflect very poorly. So I do ask you respectfully to consider all of our voices. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And now Sally Williams, followed by Casey Eldridge.
Hello, my name is Sally Williams, and I have worked in the rescue world for 20 years, 15 years with Augusta Dog Adoptions. I was around when the ASPCA was in control of the pound, and I worry about the possibilities of it being picked up by an organization again with no welfare of the animals. I have experienced a lot. I have seen and wish not to think of the past, but move to the future. I have seen large groups of hounds released by an owner and all euthanized because hounds do not make family pets and they don't move fast enough. I have seen multiple litters of puppies euthanized when one would be sick and they would worry that they all were going to come down with something. And one dog that has always stayed in my mind was, I saw a golden retriever that had a smashed in skull, and he was on stray hold, and he did not get the medical care he needed because of putting money into a dog that was on stray hold. And he did pass away the next day, and that was very unfortunate. And now I am very pleased to say I was able to see Shenandoah Valley Animal Service Center take over the pound. You can walk in and the hounds and other breeds are networked to other rescues. They are not euthanized. They are put into rescues and foster homes. It is nothing to see. You can see puppies vetted, wormed. The sick ones are cared for and taken home if they need special TLC. The sick and injured are not left alone to die like the golden retriever was. The staff surround them with comfort and TLC when they are to be passed, it is time for them to pass on. A group of volunteers has formed a 501 nonprofit organization, and they have funds for medical needs. They foster dogs, and they walk the dogs every day for the pound, and they even take them out on outings so they feel like they're in a home environment, and they take them out for adoption events. They do everything they can to get these dogs adopted. To go back to what it was would be a big setback for animal welfare. You could be handing it over to a management you could be handing it over to management that does not see the life of a dog matters and willing to work and make the life of all unwanted dogs and cats better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Becky Eldridge, followed by Becky Harmon.
Hi, I'm Casey Eldridge. I have been volunteering and fostering SBSC for about a year and a half now. And quite honestly, the recent post of the operations for the shelter that bid kind of infuriates me. I know it's a normal process for local governments to do, and I know that hypothetically, it could be an amazing turn of events for the animals. But all I can think of is how it could be the reason that people lose their jobs and the animals lose their lives. I think about the statistics on the Augusta County SPCA's website, where in the last full year that it was operating as our municipal shelter, only 17% of cats who entered the shelter alive left the same way. 442 cats were adopted or transferred to rescue. The remaining 2,150 were killed. Dogs fared better at that facility, with about 80% leaving the shelter alive in 2010. I think about the horror stories that I've heard from people who've been in this line of work for years. Any pregnant cat or dog being euthanized upon intake, any unneeded puppy or kitten being euthanized, having 2 euthanasia days per week, and nearly non-existent veterinary care. And I think about my fosters. I've fostered bottle babies, kittens with medical issues, kittens who, because their care was too involved or too costly, would have just been euthanized under other circumstances. We cannot go back to that. The staff have poured their hearts and souls into this shelter, and we currently have about a 96% safe rate. Compare that to 17% or even 80%. The staff has built an extensive network of rescues, both local and out of state, as well as a group of dedicated volunteers and fosters, because we couldn't get to that same rate alone. I acknowledge that the shelter staff are stressed out and overworked, and we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed. The shelter, though, should remain a municipal entity and not handed over to the lowest bidder. Ideally, management of the shelter would change to any other municipal authorities with whom it works, either Stan City or Augusta County. A director would be hired, staff would be paid well in order to attract and retain them. Working at the shelter is a labor of love, and we're lucky that with a starting pay of $10 an hour part-time with no benefits, we can get anyone to do it. Especially when, in our current economic climate, KFC is hiring at $14 an hour starting, and working there, you're not going to be coming in contact with urine, feces, and blood regularly, and are significantly less likely to get bitten or scratched, although working with the public, it's statistically not zero. The staff also needs support from the supervising government body because to serve our community well, we should all be on the same side. Should there be no alternative to bidding this out, it is imperative that maintaining a 90% or higher save rate is included in the operator's contract, and that the contract be terminated if that is not met. We cannot go back to a time where healthy and treatable animals are killed simply because it's easier and less costly than caring for them.
All right, my name is Becky Harmon, and I am an Augusta County resident, but I married into a Waynesboro guy, so I hope that counts as a point. Do you know what the first full week of November is? It's National Animal Shelter Appreciation Week. So you have anything exciting planned to recognize this week in Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center? Sure. Let's plan a meeting and just jerk the rug right out from underneath the feet of many people who have worked hard to make this shelter something you could be proud of. I remember quite well when the shelter opened its doors as I was there. opening the doors to a shelter that didn't even have a washer and dryer. I also remember My Dog Votes campaign. But my being there led to 10 years of volunteering in some form or another, watching more directors come and go during these years, which from a business standpoint reflects back on its leaders, you. The goals of staff members and volunteers has been in saving lives. And other people have or will speak to you tonight about the success rate that they have achieved. And this achievement has been reached because of their dedication. I do sincerely appreciate the improvements that have been made over the 10-year period. You have done that. We appreciate that. But I have watched for 10 years that the shelter has continuously been placed on the back burner. Lack of pay raises and little or no recognition. I mean, let's face it, you didn't know that it was National Animal Shelter Recognition Week. The Augusta SPCA, in the meantime, seems to have thrived quite nicely. But then again, they shop around, bring in the most highly desirable and adoptable dogs and cats, and rarely take any from the shelter. They do take them, but it's not very often that they will step up to the plate. Other rescue organizations without a multi-million-dollar facility, empty, mostly empty, sitting on top of a hill, has done more to support the shelter than the SPCA ever has and ever will. And it is beyond annoying to me, even after this amount of time, how the general public still believes the SPCA is where you go to drop off found animals and search for missing pets. Education is needed. The shelter has outgrown its facility. There's no doubt about that. It was only meant as a temporary fix. And just like any other successful business does, and also much to the disappointment of the SPCA, it is a successful business. We do not want to be back to a high euthanasia rate in the state records. There are state records. Ask those involved in the day-to-day operations on how to keep this successful business going. Ask the volunteers, ask the rescue organizations who are involved on a daily basis. Perhaps it is time for a changing of the guard. You've had 10 years. Now maybe it's time to give Stanton city manager a shot at it. It's an option for you, not bidding it out to a high bidder. All I see at this point is you're looking for a quick fix to something that you don't want to be bothered with anymore. But remember this, our dogs do vote and their voices will be heard. Thank you.
Linda Farrar, followed by Angie Strickler.
Good evening. My name is Linda Farrar. I started volunteering at Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center about 5 years ago. I've done a little bit of everything there, but I love to walk the dogs, socialize the dogs, and pet the dogs. Lots of other volunteers donate their time and resources there too. There is a robust volunteer program, adoption program, and the shelter has an extensive network of rescue organizations that they work with as well. When things get crowded at Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center, the staff at the shelter send out a plea on social media and people show up. They show up with their money and their resources. Yes, the shelter is small and understaffed, but the wider community has embraced it. I've been happy to participate in adoption events at various businesses in the community. They appreciate the work the shelter does and want to be part of that success. The volunteers make connections through adoption events, but it's the dogs that are the ambassadors. They get out for the day, meet all kinds of people, and sometimes get adopted. When I volunteer at the shelter, people ask me, what's it like here? It's wonderful. The community believes it's wonderful. Businesses support it. They embrace it. People donate time, money, resources,
Everything from the beds the dogs sleep on to dog food that I buy, everybody buys. Will an outside contractor put in the time and effort to maintain all the connections the shelter has now? What about the volunteer programs and the adoption events? What about the staff and the animals? I ask you to carefully consider all these factors when you think about the future of Shenandoah Valley Animal Services. Thank you.
James Strickler, followed by Gene Fraser.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. My name is Angie Strickler. I grew up in the Augusta County area. I've been recently moved to Waynesboro about 1.5 years ago. And I just wanted to vocalize my support of the local animal shelter and recognize their hard work. I wasn't aware until recently that there was an opportunity coming up for an outside contractor to bid on the facility. And I just would like to ask for consideration to continue to achieve such high save rates for the animals and to support the staff. I don't have any specific statistics or numbers, but I just wanted to share a personal comment. Animals are very important to me, and I think to a lot of, excuse me, to a lot of people as well. As a nurse and then a nurse practitioner in the COVID ICU, I have relied heavily on my animal companion to provide just comfort and joy. And I think a lot of us in the service industry, whether it be for animals or humans, can appreciate the value that animals add to our lives. Recently, one of my dogs passed away, and I miss her dearly, but I'm excited to open our home again for another dog, and I have an appointment tomorrow to meet one of them at the shelter. And so I just wanted to ask your support as the city council to prioritize adding amendments to the contract. And lastly, I would also like to verbalize my support for increasing salaries for all of the public services departments that presented information tonight. I know firsthand how important their services are, and I believe that they should be recognized and compensated fairly for their value to the community. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
This is Ms. Jean Fraser, followed by Jason Clark.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have been volunteering at SBASC since 2012, and I'm usually in there 3 or 4, maybe even 5 days a week. And I have seen it all. I have seen it when there were animals, when they were talking about the 80% euthanasia rate. And the dedication of the employees, these people are phenomenal. And they have done a phenomenal job, and it has gotten better and better over the years. People really care. It's almost as if they treat these animals as if they were their own. And I mean, it's an amazing organization. Yes, it is small, and yes, some of the facilities are not probably not up to par, but we have passed our inspection. They They are a dedicated group of people. I mean, people work $10 an hour. I mean, you can make twice that working at a factory. You can make more than that working at KFC. It's just, we love the animals, and there's a real camaraderie, a real esprit de corps, and it would really be terrible to tear that apart. And we absolutely are dedicated to maintaining a euthanasia rate of, well, the 96% save rate. And we want to see the animals come out the front door. We do not want to see anybody coming out in body bags. And there's a great opportunity here. I mean, this could go either way. It could go bad, I mean, I have also volunteered at the SPCA, and supposedly there were no killed. Well, that is absolutely not true. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak. We love these animals, and we really want what is best for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for the chance to speak with you this evening. My name is Jason Clark, and I'm from Stanton, so thanks for accepting me as a guest. My wife Sonia and I have been volunteering and fostering and caring for special needs and senior and hospice dogs from the shelter for not quite as long as Jean, but a pretty good many years now. You've already heard a lot about numbers and statistics, and to be honest, I had those numbers and statistics in my presentation for you too. I think the ones that you do need to remember is that 58% euthanasia rate in 2010 from the previous third-party management, and then the 6% euthanasia rate now. But I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the different administrations here in Waynesboro City, because you should be proud of the people you have working for you, and the fact that that euthanasia rate started coming down less than 3 years after you took over. So there is a lot of talk about the contract. There's a lot of talk about outsourcing, there's a lot of talk about expense. But I want you to be aware of what this government and private partnership has accomplished. So first, we want to acknowledge that it is expensive to run an operation like this. We want to acknowledge that it's hard to find and retain the people with the passion and the talent to do it. But I think it's also important that we acknowledge that you have them. Both Tracy and Aaron are here this evening, and if I know them at all, they've probably spent at least some of their attention, if not their time in this past 2 hours, on work, networking, thinking about the animals, thinking about what tomorrow is going to be like and who needs care. So knowing that what they have done over the past 10 years, the networks, the volunteers that they have empowered, could be at risk. That would be terrible to lose. As many people have already stated, the staff you have now focuses on saving and improving the life of each animal as an individual. This provides a very real and cost-effective benefit both to the animals, but also to the people of our community. And it says a lot about all of us and the communities that we want to build and live in. In short, it's an investment worth making and maintaining. The proposal to outsource the vital service raises many questions for all of us. Perhaps most pressing for me, though, is what level of support will the municipalities be providing during the lengthy proposal, review, approval, and contract process? Our shelter has been operating in survival mode for over 4 months, and this is not the first time. Just from the records that we can see, and from anecdotal evidence, over the past 10 years, the shelter has been without a director for over a year of that time. Not consecutively, but that kind of break in leadership can cause performance issues. The fact that we've been as successful as we have is down to your dedicated staff and down to all of the volunteers, plus many more that you see here. A big component of your decision, I know, has to be the financial cost, not just to your community, but to your partner communities as well. But what it should not cost is the lives of thousands of healthy adoptable animals every year. Abandoning the successful operation that you have built and the vital network that the SBASC employees and volunteers have built, and possibly returning to killing thousands of animals each year is unacceptable. My time's done. Thank you.
Bill Klon, followed by Herman Wells.
My name is Phil Kwan, and I live here in Waynesboro. I want to thank you for giving me the time to talk tonight. I'll try to keep it brief. I've been making a bunch of notes and changes as everybody else is speaking. I've got errors all over the place. I hope I don't end up tying myself into a knot. Okay. I called all the city council members regarding the 14th Street Greenway, and all but one called me back, so most of you know how I feel. To me, a greenway is an unrestricted walking, biking path through a field or along a river not previously open to public use, hence the name Greenway. Before the 14th Street phase, you have city streets connecting Ridgeview Park with the present Greenway at the Y. Unlike a normally unrestricted greenway, I understand the 14th Street phase. With that phase, there are 30 plus potential restrictions, whether it be crossing streets, alleys, or driveways. After this new phase, you will still have city streets connecting Ridgeview Park with the present Greenway at the Y, with the same restrictions of the crossing streets, alleys, and driveways. To me, it's a waste of funds putting this section in, exchanging loss of parking and potentially converting 14th Street to a one-way street in exchange for the benefit of the few that may use it. If the horse is already out of the barn, please do it in a way that doesn't require lost parking or a one-way street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Herman Wells, followed by Amy Hammer.
Hello, my name is Herman Wells. I live at 551 South Magnolia Avenue in Waynesboro. And I don't know what's going on with the chickens and the roosters and the cats and the dogs, but put me on that train. So, don't mess with them. I think we need to come off of that, whatever's going on with it. Before I read my remarks, I just want to say that I thought I was maybe seeing things, or it was just me seeing it, but tonight I've heard about armed robberies, speeding in the streets, shootings, running red lights, bikes being stolen, Wayne Avenue crashes, and some very odd reduced statistics for this year. But something's not making sense, so let me just read my remarks here. Earlier this year, the city was conducting private and public discussions and meetings about our budget. Most of the discussions centered around tax rates and public school funding. During one public meeting at the high school, our city manager displayed a series of slides. One of the slides contained a list of positions the city manager had requested our council fund. Though I may not have the wording exactly correct, he stated words to the effect that these requests have been made many times, but to no avail. He went on at some length as to the continued requirement for many of these positions. So this was last year when we were talking about the budget. Near the top of one of the slides was a request for additional law enforcement officers. Our city manager recognized earlier this year that additional law enforcement officers were needed in Waynesboro. Though I cannot speak to how or why he personally came to that conclusion, my thought is, based on my experience as a resident, the requirement is valid. So as the city manager, staff, and council begin working the budget this year, I ask that you consider hiring additional full-time patrolling law enforcement officers. Please give this request the same amount of effort and scrutiny you gave to our schools and our tax rate. I ask that you talk not only to our chief law enforcement officer, but to the officers themselves. Perhaps ride with an officer on a Friday or a Saturday night. If you have rode with an officer in the past, do it again so you can refresh your memory. Ask them about their concerns with regard to their jobs, the neighborhoods they patrol, and the citizens that live in those neighborhoods. Ask them about the feedback they receive from citizens while on patrol. Are our citizens asking for more of a police presence in the neighborhood or less? Our city is growing. Took steps last year to ensure we fully funded our schools. Now let's take steps to ensure our city is safe as it continues to grow. Follow our city manager's lead on the hiring of additional patrolling law enforcement officers so we can ensure our city has the human resources necessary to keep our citizens safe and to ensure our officers have the backup needed when required. And lastly, I challenge you, before you leave tonight, I know our chief law enforcement officer said they have 6 officers and 7 officer patrols. There's no way that they can have 7 people on patrol every night. I guarantee they're doing 5 or 6. So ask them tonight. They've got 7 assigned, but how many are typically on patrol? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Amy Hammer, followed by Renee Clark.
Good evening. My name is Amy Hammer and I live in Highland County. So I drove a really long ways to see you guys tonight. But I've been a member of your community for about the last 15 years. I'm the co-founder and current president of Augusta Dog Adoptions, and I'm a volunteer cat foster for SBASC. I worked as an animal control officer for Stanton from 2007 to 2012. In 2011, after several price increases set by the SPCA, the localities, which is Stanton, Augusta, and Waynesboro, which I'll refer to as you, decided to open your own shelter in an effort to save money. Though the SPCA was euthanizing about a quarter of the dogs that came into their shelter and 3/4 of the cats, that was not a factor in your decision. It was purely based on cost. You opened SBASC quickly in the only location you could buy that was already built. I ran that shelter when it opened until a director could be hired. At first, I was told I couldn't even do adoptions. I could get them into rescues or I could put them down. There were no cat cages in that building the day that we opened. I drove a load of cats to the vet to be euthanized, and I held them while they were killed for you. And it was hell. In all honesty, I'm in shock by how far SBASC has come and how much you have accomplished. Despite being built just to save money, you have a save rate that is one of the best in the whole state. Shelter staff have done an amazing job given what they have to work with. You cannot keep a director because the pay is too low for a position that is mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting. I think that's why you have become frustrated and you just want someone else to take this job. If someone puts in a bid to run this shelter, it could go two ways. It could be ran by someone who makes it better, or it could go the other way. But let's be honest. The bid could be given to someone who does not care how many animals walk out the front door alive or how many go out the back in garbage bags. You could contract with someone who euthanizes everyone as soon as their stray hold is up, provides only the minimal care required by the law, and lets go of the staff that have given their lives to your shelter. And you just might save your money. The risk is too great. We ask you to continue the management of SBASC by hiring a new director who is highly qualified and will be attracted by a competitive pay salary, and hire enough staff to make this workload manageable. We ask the city of Stanton to be the fiscal agent if you guys need a break. And if nothing more, if you can do absolutely nothing more, please require that anybody who wins this bid saves at least 90% of our homeless animals. Because we're saving 97 now. We have worked for the last decade to make Thrive a shelter that you wanted because it would save you money. We gave our lives to it, and now you want to bail. I am heartbroken and I am angry. And I'm asking you to please save our shelter so we can keep saving the lives of the homeless animals that we love. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service.
Hello, I'm Renee Clark. I'm a partner with Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center and local government. I'm a volunteer with Cat's Cradle, and I'm currently on the board of directors in the role of vice president. I, like Amy, have been involved with the Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center since the first day they opened with no washer and dryer. We were terrified what was going to happen to the animals, but truthfully, where the animals had been, there was an extremely high euthanasia rate you've all heard about. So I want to take a positive spin and congratulate y'all on the great job that your staff has done, and Shenandoah Valley Animal Services is recognized in the state as having the best save rate. I don't know if you know this, but you're actually recognized nationally. And all because you guys wanted to save some money. And that was really the goal. I mean, at that time, I'm not sure how many of you were around, but it definitely was not to lower euthanasia rates. So with that said, I guess I want to bring up the RFP that was put out, because I guess a lot of us are having trouble understanding what the problem was that the RFP is trying to solve. So I guess I would like for everyone to just step back and consider that, because maybe the RFP is not the answer. The RFP, obviously, there must be something that people thought, hey, this isn't going well. We want to get out of the animal services business, but like I said, you're being recognized nationally. Again, maybe it's exhaustion. I'm sure it's a lot to that, but I think currently they have 11 to 12 staff members. I may be a little off on that, but I know it's in that range. And currently I believe they have 4 vacancies. So I was really glad to hear the presentations from police and fire, because I thought, wow, look at that staff and their salary numbers, because currently the executive director position that you guys have had vacant for a while and are trying to fill, I thought, wouldn't that be great if there was an executive director that could come present to you all these numbers and their results And you could see the great benefit. And I thought, I've got to get up there and tell them some of this stuff, that the great things that are happening. In the past, you've hired that executive director for around $36,000 a year. So from what I saw tonight, that's like entry-level pay for your fire and rescue people. This is a person that's in charge of probably 11 to 12 people, somewhere in that range. Your kennel people are making $10 an hour. And I have to say, I don't think you're the only people that are in this salary issue problem. Lots of businesses, lots of governments, we're all kind of growing with the salary needs. Again, people mentioned, making $14, $15 in fast food and retail. I think everyone is having retention issues, but I think maybe some of the problems you're trying to solve, maybe be able to solve through competitive hiring with competitive salary. Also, I'd like to mention, the rescue groups, Cat's Cradle, Augusta Adoption, Augusta Dog Adoptions, many others, we're here for you. We're out there fundraising. We're putting money into the community. We're paying for spay neuter. But we'd also like to become more involved. We put this offer out before. We used to go to quarterly meetings with the localities, and now we're not a part of those meetings. And I think sometimes, with the city managers and the shelter staff, sometimes the rescue groups can just give a different perspective on what's going on in other areas that's successful. And I can tell you that, as Amy said, Amy was a little modest when she came in and wanted to operate the shelter. It's because she offered a different way of thinking. We didn't have to kill all the animals, let's figure it out. So I think I've run out of time, but I again would like to offer our services to you to help you in any way. I hope that the RFP does not go through. If it does go through, you need to hold them to the same standards that your staff can do right now, which, as Amy said, we just figured it out. It's a 97% save rate. So congratulations on that. That is just awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so Rachel, and I'm having trouble with the last name. It looks like, okay. And then Paige Cash.
Rachel Camel. I live on Smith Street, Waynesboro. That's for me to look back to follow because I don't really have but just a few notes. So, and I apologize for my parents. I was building fence for my dogs earlier.
Can you step in front of the mic, please?
Oh, is that better? Sorry. Okay, first I want to congratulate that whole corner over there. They do a phenomenal job. They are compassionate beyond belief. They are not paid enough. I volunteer at the shelter when I can. Right now, I actually have a foster from the shelter. And since it is National Adoption Week, I'd like to say that I'm adopting her. But they take the time to save the animals that another place wouldn't, okay? They take the time, they have the compassion, and they care about what they do. They care about their work, they care about the people in the community, and they care for these animals like they are their own. So I have some, this is public information, but compared to, we have Shenandoah Valley Animal Service Center compared to the Augusta Regional SPCA. In 2016, SPAC took in 1,349 dogs. We had 744 stray dogs found, 47 seized, and 6 bite cases, and 415 surrendered by owner. And we took in 67 dogs from other Virginia agencies. The regional SPCA, no stray dogs, no seized animals, no bite cases, 155 surrendered by owner, 93 from other Virginia agencies, and 588 from out-of-state agencies. So that says to me that they're picking and choosing, like, what dogs they will take. They're not taking in strays, they're not taking any basically the bad dogs. The dog that I'm adopting today, she would have been a bad dog that they wouldn't have considered even saving. And she's worth it. She's a great dog. This is bothersome that to pick and choose dogs that get to be saved. And my big concern is that another thing that concerns me, 5 dogs were reclaimed by owners. Out of the 844, 5 found their way back to their owners. Whereas we had 390 reclaimed by their owners. I just think that the staff is doing a phenomenal job. They're not recognized for it, and this is kind of criminal to pay them what they're being paid, and then to basically potentially give their job away. They're dedicated. This is the people that you want. This is people that you need. It'd be a disservice to hand this out to somebody else.
Thank you, Ms.
Hello, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm gonna keep this pretty short and sweet. My name is Paige Cash. I'm a resident of Augusta County. I'm a business owner in Stanton, and I'm also the founder and president of a nonprofit, Pitbull Rescue in Augusta County, founded in 2012. I've also been in and out of that shelter for 10 years now. I was there when there was no washer and dryer, if you remember that. I've seen amazing things, and I'm gonna echo what some of the people here, the people in this corner are amazing people. I'm not gonna thank anybody up there because I highly doubt any of you have ever rolled up your sleeves and gone to that shelter. But the people in that corner are saints, and you guys owe them a lot for what they've done. I have a pretty quick and simple solution to the problem. If the cities would provide the resources and the finances to the shelter staff, they would be able to do their jobs and you wouldn't need to subcontract it. I find it pretty funny that the city can't seem to realize that your lack of support and forcing the people in that corner to do 3 or 4 jobs is exactly why you're in the position that you're in.
Thank you all for your comments tonight. Move on to item 13. Item 13 is to hold a closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring provisions of legal advice by the city attorney as authorized by section 2.2, 3711A8 of the Virginia Code. The subject matter of this meeting is voting for redistricting. Is there a motion to go to closed session?
Mr. Mayor, I move this meeting to recess and the city council meeting for immediately reconvene in a closed meeting for the following purposes. Consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by our attorney as authorized by section 2.2-3711A8 of the Virginia Code. The subject matter of this meeting is redistricting.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second, but just as a point of order, our charter requires at 10 p.m. that we do a continuation, a majority vote, and just seek legal counsel if we, unless we can cover this in 10 minutes in closed session, should we make a motion to do a continuation beyond that?
Hopefully the closed session won't take much longer than 10, 15 minutes, but to be on the safe side, we should have a continuation because it's an automatic termination.
Do we have a motion to do a continuation?
I'll make a friendly amendment to Vice Mayor to do a continuation coupled with the closed session request, and I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4. I just wanted to give a roll call vote.
Mayor Henderson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Williams? Councilman George?
Aye.
Councilman Hoskins? Aye.
a motion to, we return from, closed session back into open session?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the following. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened a closed meeting on this day pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in a closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
Do we have a second to that motion? Thank you, Mr. Short. Ms. Porter, we need a roll call.
Mayor Henderson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Williams?
Aye.
Councilman Short?
Aye.
Councilman Hospital?
Aye. All right, this meeting is now open again. And do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting? I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Meeting's closed.